So this ask in your name, amen.
Oh,
Yeah.
Signatures.
Okay, we have the agenda. Is there any additions or changes?
Sharon, I'd like to add for discussion on 911 services.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna add, Mr. Ron Moore, discussion of the housing evictions from
Okay, Joey, that 911, is that a grant that you're referring to?
It will be an upcoming grant. Yes. Wanting to have direction from the
Okay.
council.
We'll add that 911 to new business. And Ron Noor, new business, number 6. The housing evictions, tribal council items, number 2.
3.
Oh, 3. Wow, we haven't reached that point. I would like to move that number 3 item on new business to the last of the agenda.
Which one?
Number 3, new business.
Oh, yeah, then move it down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any other additions?
I'd like to make a motion to present the agenda as amended.
second.
A motion second to approve the amended agenda as presented. Discussion?
Amended.
Any objections? No objections, motion passed 7-0-0. Reading of the minutes. Action item correction of motion 8/23/18 NCAI membership dues amount. Let's see what was that. The motion was Kenneth Mallory motion to approve the payment of the NCAI membership dues for $5,000, and according to their policies, our amount would have been $6,500.
With corrections.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to correct the minutes of 8/23/18 regarding NCI membership dues to the correct amount of $6,500.
Been motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second to correct the amount for NCI membership dues to $6,500. Discussion?
Yes, under new business, you got adopt resolution of American Indian Congress membership. those, or is that a different item?
It's a different item.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Any objections? No objections, motion passed 7-0-0. Minutes, 8/23/18, monthly tribal council meeting minutes.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Okay. Been motion second. Motion by Kenny Mallory, second by Curtis Ace here. To approve the mid-monthly tribal council meeting minutes. Discussion? Objections? Motion passed 7-0-0. Minutes, 8/24/18, treasurer's report.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
A motion second to approve the minutes of 8/24/18. Discussion?
I have a question. What was the PL account drawdown for?
We didn't have any. No one.
There was a resolution to draw down from the PL account. What was that to be used for? Because in the resolution, it didn't say what the stated purpose was. It was 433,000, I think. But when I referred to the packet, there was no description.
Okay, does anybody know?
Yeah.
You got it in your minutes?
Does anybody remember?
Yeah.
Search my memory.
I was out on that meeting.
Was it for increase?
That's all I don't remember myself.
It's done by resolution.
Any resolution?
No. See it? Okay, the treasurer trying to get that report from the city hall.
That was for, appropriations budget.
For this year's, or
Yeah,
to
this
take
year's.
us through the year?
This
To
year's.
finish
next-
FY 17 or, I mean 18,
2019.
2019?
Because they were getting ready for the appropriation, they were having those meetings down here with the CEO and all the department heads like that.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any objections to the motion? No objections, motion passed 6-0-0. Ratify 5 signature, adopt resolution 18-135 Head Start 5-year grant application.
Move it.
Second.
A motion and second, is that you, Vince?
Yeah.
To ratify resolution 18-135. Discussion? Any objections? No objections, motion passed 6-0-0. New business, adopt resolution, National Congress American Indians membership 2018-2019.
Chair, does that membership go into effect this year yet?
Yeah, this coming year at the next convention.
That's the one in Denver?
Yes.
Send delegates to?
I'll move it, Mr. Chair. Resolution number
No number yet.
18136.
18136. Okay.
Been motion, is there a second?
Second.
Go ahead, Jim. Give it to Jim.
Jim?
Yeah.
Been motion and second to adopt resolution 18-136. Membership of the National Congress of American Indians. Discussion?
I have a comment. As you know, Mr. Chairman, there was some issues that came out about accusations made against an NCI employee last week, and there was an article on Indians.com, and there was a little bit of brief discussion at the Great Plains Tribal Chairman's Health Board, because we're talking about dues, and I was talking about reporting out about the NIHB issue of shares, and Chairman Wright shared a little bit of some of the action that the NCI Executive Committee and the NCI Board is taking on that. And so I just wanted to bring it to the table in case anybody didn't read that article, and wondering if the tribe or if Chairman's Association in the Great Plains perhaps would be taking a position on that, because the fact that NCAI championed the VAWA work with some other people in Indian country, it just seemed a little bit concerning that there wouldn't be a stronger action or movement with that employee. And so I just wondered if there'd be impact on the conference. I know one of the board members said, oh, we're going to spend the whole conference answering questions about that because people want to know. And so I just raise it so that everybody knows that I think there's an internal investigation going on, but it's for me, it's a mark on all of us because we hold up this organization and support it, and they do good work, but we would also expect that they would act swiftly with things that serious. And it's a non-native employee and a Native American woman that has made claims, and so it's just, I guess, be aware of that and how we want to respond if it comes to the Chairman's Association. But I just wanted to say it was discussed at the Health Board.
Well, it has come to the attention of the Chairman's Association at our coalition meeting we had at Winnebago a week ago this past Friday. We had a conference call, and the Chairman's Association is going to write something up. We haven't seen that yet, so we're preparing ourselves for that.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? Any objections? No objections, motion passed 6-0. Wig copier contract approval.
Move it.
Here's the resolution,
We got it.
here's the voucher.
Been a motion, is there a second?
That's this year.
On this contract?
Second?
Been motion, second. Discussion? And I just need to bring this to the attention of the council. The back sheet of that agreement right there, Vince, that you have on the back side of that agreement.
Right here?
Yeah.
Backside.
Okay, on there, it says waiver of sovereign immunity. You know, we've had that subject brought up quite often recently, and I want to know how the council feels about it.
Certain contracts, such as the copier contracts and other things, we sign a limited waiver of sovereignty and immunity, and it's basically saying that if we default on this contract, we're saying that this company can sue us if we break our contract. So if we were to not pay for this contract, otherwise the tribe has sovereign immunity and nobody can sue the tribe. And so we, by signing this, say that if we don't uphold our financial obligation for this lease, then they would be able to pursue those funds from the tribe.
Comment, but if we go that route, then if we don't waive sovereign immunity, are they likely to pull the contract?
Then they wouldn't lease us that copier.
That's what I was
So it's a standard form,
wondering. Is this about?
and it's only for this opportunity. It's not like a blanket waiver. It's just you sign one every time you enter a contract such as this.
It's the comment, Mr. Chairman, council. I mean, that waiving a limited waiver of tribal sovereign immunity is standard procedure when it comes to business. Any bank, any business, generally. But it doesn't say, it just says waives its sovereign immunity. I would really appreciate it, and I think they allude to it. It says, the tribe hereby waives its sovereign immunity for any action related to the agreement, which kind of says limited waiver. I'd feel more comfortable if they just added that word limited waiver of sovereignty, because that's what I always see. I think most of us always see that on these waiver things, which is kind of standard procedure nowadays for doing business. But it's just specific to that one agreement. It doesn't waive the tribe's sovereignty overall. So I would feel more comfortable if it said limited waiver of sovereignty. Although it does say, kind of allude to what we're talking about here, but usually limited waiver of sovereignty is kind of the standard language that I've seen in the past.
May I read 4B? It says, the tribal council is aware and understands the terms of the agreement and consents by a quorum of the members present to be bound by the terms and conditions of the agreement, including but not limited to the section of the agreement referencing the governing law, jurisdiction, and venue of litigation. So it would be in our tribal court, and we would allow them to come to our tribal court and say, you broke the contract, if we were ever to do that. But since we do good business, we wouldn't do that.
Kind of bothers me that they say, but not limited to this section. In other words, they could open it up to other things.
Right.
That kind of bothers them.
We could ask Sheila to, I mean, I think this is their form, this isn't our form.
Yeah.
So your thought is to refer it to our attorney?
Well, I don't think that's necessary, but if people would be more comfortable with that, I mean, unless we draft our own form that, and when we have a vendor, we say this is our form. But this is the same form that I've seen used, and that's why I think it's this,
We did
this vendor's form.
We did this 2 years ago, I think, on the same company.
With the same language?
Yeah. And I'm just brought this to the attention of the council because of recent incidents, you know, concerning sovereignty. And I don't want to start something here where it's gonna open up another door for us to battle.
Wouldn't the fact that it be handled in our court be in our favor anyway? Or might not it necessarily take place in our court?
State or federal?
Does it specifically say that tribal court?
It says, the tribe agrees that any dispute related to the agreement shall be adjudicated in any state or federal court in which state and consents to the jurisdiction of the same. But it would be in our tribal court. I guess that's my understanding, but I don't know if people wanted to say that.
No.
It's a standard form.
Have we always used this company, and are they pretty reliable?
This is the company that we use that is negotiated through our IT department. And then so they're the ones that bring this forward. The Little Creek Tribal College also uses this same company.
Okay. Been motion second. Any further discussion?
I want to comment, Chairman. I think maybe it is a good idea, maybe we should have our own form for the state, you know. This is, we'll sign yours and you sign this. Legal. That's it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any objection to the motion?
I object, Mr. Chairman.
I object.
Call for vote. Favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. No?
I think
One,
I'm taking
two.
it.
3.
Who's the third one?
Rob. 4, 3, 0. Motion passed.
There's 7 of us here.
Yeah.
Oh, 4, 3, oh.
Yeah.
I had 2 written down, I'm sorry. Getting old.
Okay, next item, number 4, Genoa Indian School Digital Reconciliation, September 28th. Is it in here?
Yeah.
On this one.
Oh, it is. Okay, this is approval for travel.
for council? Or Randy Tebow? His name's mentioned in there.
Randy has been represented me at the past 2 meetings,
Okay.
but they've been wanting me to go down there. Well, it wouldn't hurt for all the council to go either.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, went down there in August, down to Genoa, and then they have a lot of handwritten data, but they're digitalizing everything, so that if you know your relative that attended, Indian school, and you go up there and they'll type in the names in the computer, and it'll bring up when they attended, and then, and also they'll give a printout, and they'll give you a form also to write what happened after they left Genoa, their some of their life's experiences, what they did and they ended up, those type of things. They'd like those comments to be entered into that digitalized thing with our relatives that attended.
Would the $500 honorarium be used to just reimburse the travel that it would issue? Because it says compensate on of you, but maybe they mean one of you. That's what I was. See in the last paragraph. Move it.
See,
For,
move
yeah, for the chairman or for the, I guess the designated representatives
it. TC.
to attend the Genoa Indian School Digital Reconciliation Community Advisory Meeting.
Been motion, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Any objections?
Discussion. So, we're gonna send a representative or representatives to this, and then what information are they gonna bring back? It's helpful.
Okay, Randy is the one that's coordinating this, and we're trying to work it into our museum. There's a lot of information down there that he's been trying to acquire. Basically, is to get the information concerning our tribe.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe once it's digitalized, then it's just a matter of getting a written letter requesting those documents, and then they could push enter and just enter them into our database here.
I have one more comment.
Mhm.
I think it's, I'm glad that somebody will go and represent the tribe at this and provide input on how the tribe would want to see that presented. And one of the things when you were talking about the sovereignty issue is, seems like it's most important right now to control the narrative, and we can only do that by participating. And the one other thing that I've been meaning to bring to the table, and this is just, I can bring it at another time with more information, but there's a cemetery in Washington, D.C. that many of the tribal leaders and delegations that visited D.C. are buried there, and it's because they fell ill or for whatever reason. And I thought that was really interesting, and I found out that there's actually a Winnebago tribal member buried in that cemetery. And I wanted to talk to Randy about it and to see if there's opportunity to repatriate those remains. Stacy Boland had suggested that we lay tobacco down, and she first learned of it and took some of the youth, one of the cohorts of youth there, and it was just really powerful when they told the story about this is the ground that we stand on, and these are the leaders that have come to DC from the very beginning to express the tribal interest, and that some of them never got to come home. And it was just really, really special, I think. And so if we were ever to want to do something like that, I would sure ask Randy to spearhead that for us.
Mhm. Something to think about and discuss a little further. Any further discussion? Any objections to the motion? No objections, motion passed 7-0. Number 5. 911.
I wanted to,
Joy?
oh,
I couldn't see her behind the podium anyway.
That's right. Thank you. I wanted to bring to your attention today, a week ago, it was presented to me that there is a grant opportunity coming up. They asked for us to sign off on certifications as kind of a first phase or a letter of intent type of phase to move forward with 911. I hadn't heard that being expressed before, and so normally I might say, well, do we really want to do this? Let's just plan for it and do it later. But it appears that this is a one-time thing. And so I wanted to bring that in front of all of you as to know whether or not we want to pursue this. The PD and dispatch staff are the ones who brought it to my attention. And in visiting with Jason and Roxanne and Tiffany, their thing is that they are actually working in the Stone Ages on their role as far as a 911 response. How we're set up presently is it goes through the state then disseminates those funds out to the county sheriff's departments. That includes the FCC taxation that occurs on a national basis as well as through the state. So it would take we would need to do some thoughtful planning on whether or not we want to do this. And they've changed the response. They wanted to certify that we had a plan already in place. There were too many states as well as tribes, and there were specific comments that they shared with me on how the 911 system has passed tribes by. And this is kind of an opportunity to come and bring into place to be able, for our dispatchers to be able to accept text messages through cell phones, videos, photographs, those types of things as the contacts. That means that they do the tower, as I understand it, ping, that type of thing. And so to move forward with this, we would need to do a series of planning meetings over the next 2 to 3 weeks so that we would then make an formal grant application. But I wanted to know where you guys were actually at on this. At this point, our PD serves primarily this area over here. If we would do a 911, we'd need to decide if we're doing the whole reservation. Would we take on the calls when somebody dials 911 that would come here if it was within the reservation boundaries, and then our dispatch would then contact whether it's Emerson or Thurston County, our local PD, ambulance services, those types of things, to work with emergencies. I've since also visited with Matt May. He's on board with this. He's said that this has been coming. He was a part of sharing that this is really, if we're gonna do this, now's the time to do it, because we probably won't have another chance to do this. I visited with Brandon, because we'll need to know what it will take from technology side. I visited with BJ because there's GIS issues that would need to go into it. I have not visited with Victor. I have not visited with Sheila, because it could come into, depending upon how you want to proceed and how the planning group would want to proceed with this, as to whether or not we would need to look at some tax code and some legal things that would go with it. So it's kind of a big thing. It's also a one-time opportunity if we want to go in that direction. Or do you want to stay with how the system works now, where it actually goes through the state and the county? So I just wanted a little guidance from all of you.
I think that, thanks Joy for bringing this. It's a missing piece right now to our new hospital that is still transitioning into what we want it to be, but I know many of the patients and relatives in town have had delays and issues with emergency response, and some not having the infrastructure and not being the priority when it's sent to tender first. And it just seems that we have the people and the technical assistance in place, and now perhaps some funding to make that more efficient. And the guy that knows all about it is here just in time. And we're talking about 911.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Isaac,
So I'd really like to see us do our own thing so that our response is a priority.
The 911 system, I think right now is where it's held up at is we just need to purchase the blue signs and hire a couple canvassers and go back through. Some of the 911 numbers aren't the numbers aren't on the right buildings or right houses. And then any new construction, we would have additional numbers sitting in idle, just waiting for them. They'd come and grab a number and put it on there. It's easy to do, but it just takes a lot of time. And the main thing is that everybody's been battling about who's going to purchase these blue signs, and so far the tribe hasn't given anybody the authority to go out and purchase these metal signs, because they're expensive. I mean, not real expensive, but they got a good cost to them because they're reflective. So those are probably the only two things that need to be done. And then the 911 system down there, we're waiting on America Broadband, from what I was told, to switch it over from when it rings in Thurston or in Pender to here. So there's just a couple little things, and if the table wants to get behind that and give that a push, I think we could accomplish that.
And I don't know if you had an opportunity to read the email that I sent you. There's some grant funding out there to bring all of our equipment up to par to be able to accept those calls and those types of things. There's no reason that those funds could not also include the signs that you're talking about. I wasn't aware of that. So it's a matter of doing some planning coming up here, and I wanted to know whether or not the council wanted to go forward with the equipment and for us to have our own dispatching station here.
Yeah.
Bring that up to speed. 'Cause literally, they're doing it on a tablet and an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, there's the actual council that's over there in the police department is a real old one.
Yes.
It's still a good one, but it needs to be cleaned and kind of needs to be updated. But a lot of times they're upgrading now, and you're looking at about $80,000, to start at. That's not all everything program and everything, but that's at least what some of the equipment costs. Thurston, our Pender, did an upgrade down there. They're kind of slowly working on getting all their stuff transferred over to their jail. Some of it's over there and some of it isn't. So we've been trying to work with them to kind of watching the prices and seeing what all other stuff's out there, because they're getting pretty fancy nowadays. But that's one of the things is our dispatch center isn't recognized as an actual, and that's something that we need to get on board with. So it's more or less.
That's what I'm bringing forward today.
Yeah. So I think it would be good if there's a way we can help them out.
Is that something that, in your opinion, that it would be good if we took it on and potentially take the place of the county in that regard? What are your thoughts?
I would say to be able to manage our own calls and take care of our own things, and county would still always be willing to assist in any kind of way, but at the same time I think that it would be better, because it's easier to teach kids 911 versus 402-878-2245 when something's going on in your home. So I think that we need to get that going,
So, if it's acceptable for all of you, I'll present to Frank to sign off on the certifications that are part of this first phase, and we'll start the planning process. Who on the council would like to be a part of this planning? I'm thinking Isaac, are you gonna be available?
Yeah, I would be available there.
Is there anyone else that would have an interest and would like to participate?
I'd like to just stay informed on how we, make sure that if there's anything at the hospital or that we would at least know how this is working and then roll that out to patient education and things like that.
Right, and we would definitely want to include Cindy Aldridge from the EMS perspective in that as well, yes. But you're right, I hadn't thought about Les, and that was part of my thing is starting to figure out who all we need to make certain we included in the initial. We'll look at later this week, probably Friday, to have a meeting of all the local people here to get in the conversation what we need and where we want to go. And then next week, I've had a conversation with a gentleman with the state coordination for public safety. He would look at coming and/or his field coordinator would look at coming the following week to meet with us, and then a follow-up the week after that based on the progression of things that we can have a plan in place.
That's one of the other things that it would help out too, is that right now when you call for an ambulance, some of the people are used to calling the hospital and having an ambulance dispatched from the hospital. Some of the comments were made during the transition that some of the nurses felt uncomfortable doing that because they said, we're not dispatchers, you know, it's not. And so there was a little bit of bumps in the road there, but the other part is that they used to have all the calls filter through the police department. And when they did, then at least the police department would go out and go to some of these calls, some of the officers. But now, if the ambulance gets called out, sometimes the officers don't even know they're getting called out unless they're listening to the radio. So
this could
that could help that out over there too. So, but we can get into more details later on.
All right, well, thank you. I just wanted to present and make certain that we're moving in the right direction. This is something new and it could be a much bigger item. So, thank you.
Right, right. No action on that. Okay, Ron.
I've got,
Mike, get on. Go that way. Sit over here.
I have two projects that we've been working on for the last couple months that I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about. We are in the process of getting ready to make some renovations to the food distribution building or the commod building. And we accepted bids last Monday for renovating the offices that are in there. You guys have probably all been in there. And the offices that are in there, there's just multiple little like built-in fixed cubicles that are in there. And they don't use all of them, and they're so small that they're not real conducive to efficient operations. And this is the set of plans that I put together. Okay, if you want to hand those around. It's renovating the office area, adding a training kitchen, and redoing the loading dock on the back or the south side of the building. So loading dock's in pretty bad shape. And the funding, if Joy just leave, she's probably more familiar with the funding, but it's all USDA funding. And we've got, I think, about $96,000 or $97,000 to build the training kitchen, renovate that office area. And then USDA had some additional monies, and they stepped up with $35,000 to replace the loading dock, to remove and replace the old loading dock. And what I handed around was it's the bid tab. We had 3 bidders interested in the project that submitted bids last week. And actually all 3 bids came in over budget. bid from HCI Construction for the loading dock was within $500 what we had budgeted. The low bidder was Lonnie White-Beaver, and Lonnie submitted liability insurance to us. He has a partner by the name of Troy Cook, and he has his uncle Roger that's gonna help him on this project also. And we met, was it Thursday or Friday? Friday. And went through the project, and I told Lonnie how much money we had, and it's all USDA monies, and it's not any tribal funds. And I told him, I said, that's where we need to, well, that's where we're gonna stop is with USDA funds. And what we've done to try and get the project down to within budget without really changing the project so much to where with next year's funding, I think we can add a couple of the items that we're proposing to leave out of this year's project. And if you, on that set of plans for the office area, right now there's two tiny little bathrooms that are back there. They're like 5 foot by 4 foot. They're tiny little bathrooms. And what we're proposing to do is add one medium-sized bathroom and then one handicapped accessible bathroom. So there would be two fairly large bathrooms in the office area. And what we're proposing to do to get the project to within budget is to go ahead and frame the walls out for one of the bathrooms back there, but not do any of the plumbing work or put any of the fixtures in for that one bathroom. And what we wind up with is a storage room for right now. The plumbing would be at the location, and I think what we talked about was just doing the stub-ins, like for the drains and for get the water lines there, but not mount any fixtures or do any, handrails or anything like that. And then the other item would be that we would propose to eliminate. We had it set up to where we were trying to make the front entrance to the building a little bit more appealing or inviting, and we had like glass, like they call them storefront. It's like a aluminum frame type, glass doors and a side light, and then a little airlock entry. So we're proposing to eliminate that. I think that was around $6,000, I think, $6,500 for that. And then there was one other, I think a small item was I had 3/4 inch tine group decking up above all that office area, which is overkill and unnecessary. So when Lonnie and his partner Troy and myself met on Friday, those were I think the 3 main items that we discussed omitting to try and get his number down to $96,500. I think if we eliminate those, we're not doing anything that binds us into not being able to do them next year.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment on that. I'm kind of automatically ruling out AD contracting just because of their bid. When I look at HCI Construction and Lonnie's company, Lonnie's a little bit higher, but you know what? I don't think HCI would be offended if we went with Native American people that want to get into the business. And I tend to think that between the 3 people that Lonnie's company could do that job, and I don't think HCI would be offended.
Well, I contacted Keith Kilpatrick last Tuesday, and we picked the project apart. We were on the phone for almost an hour. We went through almost every item that was on there, just trying to, it's called value engineering, just trying to go through it, to see where we can find some money. And I think we got, we went through these same items I just described, the decking and the bathroom and that other front, and we're still close to $20,000 from being able to get down to $96,500. And in that 96.5, Lonnie's got the 3% construction tax in there too, which is $2,800 or $2,900 probably. But I tried to see if HCI could, or if they were willing to, you know, get down to this number. And I think that was Tuesday afternoon when I talked with Keith, and I said, well, why don't you, you know, think about it or noodle on it for, you know, for a day or so, and see if you can get it down to within 96.5 of the monies that we have. I don't go backwards. So I'm requesting approval for the loading dock to be awarded to HCI for $35,000. Their bid's $35,400. Was it $35,400 something?
35.5.
35.5. I'm not really sure where I'll find $500, and I think that I could confirm with Keith, but I mentioned that just a little bit. He didn't say no, but I think for the $500, I think he'll do it.
And then Lonnie and Troy's company would do the office renovation and kitchen?
That's what I'm proposing.
I'm for that.
Okay, what would be the dollar amount for the office and kitchen?
96.5.
96.5.
That's what it is? Okay.
HCI would do the loading dock for 35.5.
35 even is what. $500.
Ron said he'll pay for it.
Makes it simpler for me if it's 35. Don't have to come back to you guys. I'm not sure, because it's gonna come from you guys. How much? You have to come with $500. It's not a lot of money, but.
Mr. Chairman, I'm for that arrangement. I don't know if it needs motion or not. Does it need a motion?
Need
Yeah.
approval, yeah.
I got a question. Is this ADA specs?
Yes, it meets like ADA and light.
Accessible
and light.
availability?
Yes.
Okay.
3.0 doors on everything, you know, there'll be handrails and appropriate ADA fixtures. The bathroom that we are going to install is gonna be handicap accessible bathroom. We're putting the big bathroom in with the handicap fixtures and the handrails and the 3.0 door. There's a 5-foot turnaround area in that big bathroom. Yes, it is.
Can you get into that building with a wheelchair?
You will be able to.
Really?
Yeah, it has a 3-foot old door.
I mean, an entry for the exterior? Zero grade entry kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I don't think there's any step, I don't think there's a step that goes up to that.
That's the question.
Are these gonna be 2 motions or just 1 motion?
I'm gonna make one motion, and I'm gonna make a motion that we award the food distribution contract to Lonnie White Weaver's company and HCI Construction with the details followed. That the office renovation and kitchen be done by Lonnie, and that the loading dock be done by HCI Construction. The amount of $96,500 and $35,000. I can write it out for him.
Okay, that was the motion, Kenny?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
I have a question. On, what do you project as a completion date for the interior renovation?
Well, what we're proposing to do is to, well, they need office space over there, so we can't do both projects at the same time. So what we're proposing to do is to do the kitchen first. These guys are willing to start this week. They wanna start this week. And what we talked about Tuesday was, it's probably gonna take 4 weeks to get the kitchen area done. So it should take 4 weeks, so let's say 6 weeks. You know, that gets us back to the end of October. And then what we wanna try and have is all 3 of the projects have to be done by the end of the year. And I don't see that as a problem. I mean, if HCI can get started right away with the loading dock, they have to have the loading dock done, you know, before cold weather sets in.
What date what's the completion date? You just said by the end of the year, that's pretty broad.
Would be, December 31st at the end of December 31st.
And if it's not done by the end of December 31st, then what?
We'll put, I'm gonna actually draft a contract, and we'll put liquidated damages of $350 a day. But I guess I was going into a little bit of detail beyond what you had actually asked me. The kitchen area needs to be done first, so before we tear up the office area, before we demolish the office area, they will use the kitchen area for their office area. There's gonna be plenty of room in there. It's like it's a big kitchen. I think the whole addition in there is 27 foot by 22 foot. So, and I've talked to Anthony, who I think's in charge down there right now, and he said they don't have any problem with that. There's plenty of room in there to set up some tables, and there's new countertop, as you guys can maybe see on that plan, so they can office in the kitchen area until the new offices are finished. And what Lonnie was saying is that in an effort to try and get both of the projects done in a timely manner, they want to be able to work beyond the 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday hours. And I talked to Anthony, and he said he didn't see any problem with that. There's cameras throughout that building. So, and I talked to these guys about how tempting it is when you're walking by the cooler and there's some really nice looking grapes that are in there, or an orange or whatever.
Cheese.
Don't do it. Don't do it, or you're gonna be in a lot of trouble.
If we could get in there, work 12, 14-hour days and being on the weekends, we projected to be done sooner than 2 months, but he was just giving us that cushion. We kind of wanted to get in there and show off and get some stuff done and get it done right, move a lot of these other projects so we can step in. We have a nice crew, and I'm pretty sure we'll be done before the date, depending on if we can get in and out of there when we need it to.
I'm gonna call for the question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, there's been a motion, second. Those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I need to object. I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, call for vote. Favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No? 0. Abstention? 3. Motion passed. You got it, Lonnie.
Thank you guys. Okay, if you want to hang around for a little bit, we'll go down and talk to Anthony about they're gonna have to move roofs and things. He's been moving stuff out of that area. He gets up there today. Let's go down and make sure that's okay with the staff now. I'll write 2 executive.
You have another item, Ron?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Now I got the hard one.
Neil Walker building.
Okay, we've been working on the renovation of the Human Services building also. Or the Neil Walker building to house the Human Services program. And what we're proposing to do is, shows up on these plans. It's basically to take the steel building that's down there for Neil Walker building, take it right down to the red frame and red iron. And there'll be the rigid frames and the girts on the sides and the purlins on the roof is all that's gonna be left. And then we're proposing to add a 40-foot by 70-foot expansion onto the south end of the building. That encroaches about 20 foot out in, or about 15 foot out into the parking lot down there. And I didn't bring that plan along, but it was just a preliminary plan laying over a Google Earth image. And what we're proposing to do is to move that parking probably 20 or 25 foot towards the facilities building. And there'll be some paving and some tear out, some curb work that would accompany those modifications to that parking lot. But it'll fit, so I guess that's what we're proposing to do. And then we would add the 40 foot by 70 foot metal building frame onto the south end of the existing building. You know, that would match up with the roof pitch and the same type of building. And then the architect that's been working on it, you can see on some of those elevations what he's proposing to do to make that building look a little bit more like an office building than like an ag type building, which is what it kind of looks like now. To me, it does. But he's proposing, you know, like some brick up to the windowsills all the way around it, and a couple of parapets that go up above the roof a little bit. New standing seam roof. The standing seam roof similar to that standing seam roof we put on the community, the Ho-Chunk Center last year. And then some type of siding like cement board siding or some type of hardy board siding from the brick up to the standing seam roof. The architect is working on just some color. Just some graphics that shows some different color options and some different brick on the facade of the building. He's probably gonna have that to us this week. So that's where we're at on the design part of it. What we've got, or you guys have about, it's 1.1 or 1.2 million dollars to do this project, and that's the building and then also the site work and the parking lot around the perimeter of it. The architect thinks that should be enough money to do it, but we have to have, I think, $400,000 of those monies have to be spent by the end of December of this year, the end of the year.
Yeah, I heard that somewhere.
Yeah, so
Lose it if they didn't spend it.
yeah, so we have to take some fast track type action, and what we decided to do. We've been meeting every couple of weeks with myself, Joy, the architect, Shiara, and Tina. That's pretty much the group that's been meeting. And what we've decided that we're going to have to do to try and get the project. The architect's not going to have all the plans and specs done, so we can get a lump sum bid on the project, which is that's the way they used to do it in the old days, basically. What we're proposing to do is to procure for the general contractor in the same manner that we did Educare. And Educare worked pretty well. We came in under budget, and what we did was it's called a design build type process, and it's basically we've already selected the architect. We went through all the actions with the tribal council on that. And what we're proposing to do for selection of the general contractor is I sent out requests for statements of qualifications 3 weeks ago, or probably a month ago, and we received statements of qualifications from 3 contractors. We got statements from HCI Construction, Global Engineering and Construction out of Sioux City, and L&L Builders out of Sioux City. And all 3 of those contractors are qualified to do this work. All 3 of them are metal building dealers, and all 3 of them have done similar type projects to this. Some of them a little bit bigger, but just renovations and new metal building frame type construction. So we met, discussed it, and felt that all 3 were qualified based on the submittal that they sent in to us a few weeks ago. So the next step, if we follow federal acquisition requirements, would have been to do a request for proposal. We sent out an RFP, or request for proposal, to all three of those qualified contractors. Last Monday, last Monday was the deadline for the submittal of their proposals. We received proposals from all three. I sent out a
Mr. Chair and Council, I have to excuse myself. I got a doctor's appointment. So, Cole, if you can, for the record, I'm out at 10:17.
This is a copy of the request for proposals right here, and this is the three proposals right here. You know, they're pretty lengthy. I can give you guys all a copy of all of them if you guys want to see them. What the federal procurement law, FAR, requires that we do before our selection of one of the three, we have to have some type of a justification for our selection. And what they recommend is that we do a scoring matrix based on, you know, different components of our justification for our selection. We put down qualifications as the scoring matrix, qualifications for experience and key personnel, references for similar projects, past performance on Winnebago tribal Nebraska projects, proposed costs for the projects, and any other comments that the scorers would have. And you know, I have some ideas on, you know, what my thoughts would be, and Joy filled out a scoring sheet, and I guess what I would be interested in is if you want me to make a recommendation, or if you want to do some type of a small committee, or if everybody on the tribal council wants to participate in the selection.
What were the three companies, L&L, HCI, and who?
Global Engineering and Construction.
Sorry?
I would be comfortable with your recommendation based on quality and your familiarity with these contractors and who you think would be the best value and past performance.
I would too.
So I agree, because it's gotta get moving. It's three so far. Pressure.
I have a question.
Okay.
You said should come in at the budget. What if there are overages?
Well, the advantage to doing design build process is the architect and the contractor are gonna work together for the next couple of months, you know, to finish out the design when it comes to specifying all the interior finishes, fixtures, if we're gonna put brick on the outside, if we're gonna, you know, how detailed of a standing seam roof we put on it. And the advantage is having the two of them working together. The contractor does the cost estimating, you know, for each component as the architect, you know, puts, you know, preliminary plans together. And the way that it works is that before construction starts, the contractor is bound into a GMP, which is a guaranteed maximum price, and that guaranteed maximum price cannot exceed what our budget amount is. I mean, it's basically, the architect knows that I think we've told him we've got $1.1 million. I think there's a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
We basically told him we've got $1.1 million, we want to keep a little contingency. But Roland, the contractor signs an agreement that's a guaranteed maximum price.
Okay. And then
So it cannot exceed that.
So again, on that, what would be the completion date for that project?
What's that schedule, was it in June?
We scheduled for the end of June.
June 2019?
Yes.
There would be LDs in that one also. And what we've done is, was that a month ago or 3 weeks ago? We went through the project with the architect, tried to itemize, you know, from the demolition up front, you know, all the different components of the project, and try to put timelines on it.
Yeah.
Reasonable timelines, and I think the end of next June is what we had came up with for what we thought was a reasonable timeline. You know, that may be adjusted within Andy's contract, but for right now, we have to have a contractor to get on board, basically to help with cost estimating what he's gonna do. And once we get everything put together, you know, with the type of brick and siding and all the interior fixtures and finishings, he comes up with a GMP. It has to be within budget.
How common is it that we collect LDs, and what do we do with the money when we do?
We've done it before. It's been quite a while since we've collected. When HCI Construction did the alcohol building at the hospital, they struggled through that project, and we charged them $51,000.
Well, that's where we're gonna get the $500 for the
Possibly.
for the food distribution.
That $51,000.
Well, hopefully there won't be any overage, they'll go over the time.
They charged HCI, I think $76,000 in late fees, and they still never opened up till 2 years.
I was thinking it was 50, but you might be right.
That's how fair
It was a
that
lot.
was.
It was over 50.
$77,000, and then they never did open up for 2 years.
Vince has come.
Ron, just a quick question. Did you say that they're gonna tear the building down to the skeleton, to the metal girders and all that? Okay, then they're gonna put a standing seam roof on there, I heard. And is that standing seam roof, that's the one where it's ready for solar panels, is that correct?
Yeah, it would be, yes, yep. The way that they normally do it is, can't talk that, draw pictures.
Well, excuse me, Ron, we don't need to go into detail or anything, but I was just
Yes.
wondering that if we wanted to in the near future, we could put solar panels up there because it's
Yes.
got a standing seam roof, which
And
is.
well, normally, I mean, there's two things you have to consider when you put solar panels on a roof. One is the actual attachment and the penetration of the type of the roof. The other concern is, does that structure have the, you know, is it structurally adequate to take an additional, what is it, 4 or 5 pounds, I think is what they are, 4 or 5 pounds per square foot, I think is what they normally are. We would have to do, you know, the structural engineer would have to do an evaluation of that building. I think one thing that we could do though, Vince, is we're adding 2,800 square foot onto that building. I think that there's a chance that this building that's there is probably an agricultural type loading on this building. That's my hunch. The building that we put onto it will match up with this, but we could make sure that the addition that goes onto it is probably a 40-pound live load, as a lot of the ag buildings are 30-pound live loads. So I think that's a really good point, and I think that's something that we could let the architect know that we're probably gonna be looking to want to consider putting solar panels on.
I'm just looking to the future a little bit. I see solar panels all over and I love it. I'm glad we're doing that, and I was hoping that maybe we could
There's
think about
another
it.
email that went around last week about another notified.
Yeah, Robert's interested, and that was one of
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So, there was 3 that was in favor of, having Ron review the, proposals. 4.
Yep.
Okay,
5,
4, 5,
6.
6, okay, you get it, Ron.
Well, I guess what I'm looking for is, I'd like to walk away from this meeting with the contractor.
Okay.
And,
That's for you to select, that's what we just said.
Well, we have.
Okay, go ahead.
This is the proposals right here. I don't feel like L&L Builders was responsive to what we actually asked for. They didn't provide hardly any costs. They provided, like unit costs for job trailer and superintendents and things like that, but didn't really give a good response to what we'd actually asked for. I think they spent limited time on it, and L&L Builders, you know, if you look at, this is pretty typical, past performance on Winnebago travel projects, as far as one of the scoring items. In, I think it was 1997 or 1998, when we did the bingo edition and renovation to the restaurant, probably would have been 20 or 21 years ago. L&L Builders was the general contractor on that. And it was done similar to this, with a design build type method, and they provided us a guaranteed maximum price for the, I think it was bingo hall, renovation of the restaurant area, and I think the water treatment plant might have been on there also. We had problems with that project, and what actually happened is that they gave us, we had a contract with them, they gave us a guaranteed maximum price. Maybe some of you guys might remember this, Vince may have been on the council back then. And what they did is, we did weekly meetings talking about where we're at within budget, and the L&L's representative was Mark Kawaki. He's the one that actually went to work for HCI initially and got himself in trouble with them too. But he went over the guaranteed maximum price by, I think it was almost $200,000. Larry Book, which is one of the, Larry and Lonnie Book is L&L Builders. We went up and met with him up at their office, and I think you guys had legal, I might have been when Mark Hubble was here. We went up there and met with him, and he wanted us to pay that extra $200,000. And there was no way that we were obligated to do it. It was mistakes on their project manager's fault. This was the reason it went over. And Larry Book actually came down and sat at this table right here, and he explained to the council at that time, 20 years ago, what actually happened. And I think by the time he got done explaining it to the table, I think he actually realized that, they were at fault, and that the council wasn't gonna pay him that $200,000. And that just went away. There was no litigation or anything like that. We didn't, the council or the tribe didn't do anything wrong. He just was asking, I think, and if you went back 20 years ago, the tribe was probably a little more flush with cash, and it just went away. So whether that's a negative to them, I don't know. They're a pretty good contractor, but I probably would not select them just based on their response.
I worked for those guys for 2 years over in Sergeant Bluff there. It's Pioneer. They did all that concrete work just off the interstate there for 2 years. Did a lot of concrete work, and I never really liked their attitude towards their workers or towards anybody. I was the only brown skin out of several hundred workers out there, and the only reason I got on was because I knew the superintendent of the job. He asked me to come over to work. So other than that, there was no brown skins around there at all. So just kind of ever since then, I just shy away from them guys. So who'd you?
They're reputable contractors in the Sioux City area, and they're probably qualified to do this, but just based on their response, I guess I probably would strike them off. And then we've got,
So how many points they get?
I didn't, Joy scored it. I didn't score it yet, because I didn't know, how you want to do this. But I guess there's two other contractors, and I know we need to keep this thing moving along. But the way that Global submitted a proposal to us, And in their proposal, you know, this project is gonna go until the end of June. And they submitted a proposal to us with their general conditions, which includes general conditions typically is the superintendent on a job site, the job trailer, and administrative fees, you know, just for, you know, secretarial and administrative. Those are the three main components of general conditions. And in their proposal, they're proposing $41,000 for all of that through the duration of the project. And I don't see how they can possibly do that for $41,000. I mean, most superintendents that are out on a job site on $1 million project, and including HCIs or any of the bigger general contractors, those superintendents are $75,000 to $85,000 a year people. And they're proposing to have a superintendent out there for that period of time, plus job trailer, plus administrative for $41,000. I don't think that's, I mean, it's a low number, which, you know, we wanna be frugal here, but it's not realistic.
Okay, continue on.
And the third contractor, you know, HCI Construction, obviously, you know, they're not perfect. We've had issues with them, you know, the one that we were talking about with the, you know, with the drug and alcohol building, you know, we had issues with them. You know, they end up paying, I thought it was 50-some, but maybe it was 70-some, you know, it's been over 10 years ago. You know, substantial liquidated damages. Didn't balk about it, I never heard a word about it, but, you know, a few rumblings, I guess, but, one of the things that I do like about HCI Construction is that when there's problems with them, they will do whatever they have to not wind up in this room and at this table. They address things to not have to wind up in front of the Tribal Council. So that would be the Global and HCI are close. They're gonna score really close.
Okay, what's the dollar amount?
But they were 90, was it 90?
HCI was 91,175 plus 6%, which would be 66,000 for a total of 157,176.
It was 90-some thousand dollars for the general conditions. The fees were comparable within a percentage point, I think. It was the general conditions where they were at, Global was at $41,000.
Right.
And HCI was at 90.
Global was at 40,800 plus 55,000. HCI is at 91,175 plus 66. However, when I looked at what HCI had, theirs looked like they were computing it for a 12-month period.
For the duration of what we have planned.
Which would be actually longer than what we had planned, is what they have in their 91,000. So that
Of course.
That was,
Cost
so it's probably very comparable.
Go over, it's longer, it costs more.
Make a comment. Thanks, Ron, for those details. I'm always pro-tribal, and we'd be getting a portion of that dividend back to the tribe, whereas we wouldn't be getting anything back from Global Engineering. And I also agree that Ho-Chunk is solution-driven and wanting to make their own tribal enterprise, I guess, a contractor of choice. And so I think they would be more apt to fix anything than, without question, than Global Engineering. But those are just my thoughts, because I want to support our tribal enterprises, but I'm still in favor of whoever you select.
Did you hear that, Ron?
I know not everybody agrees, and it's a coin toss, basically. I think if we were to hire Global's number is gonna wind up being where HCI's number's at. So I think think it's probably a coin toss. They both have qualified people, they both have good references, and they both, completed similar type projects.
It isn't no coin toss for me, I can tell you that right now.
No, and when I say coin toss, I mean, as far as what their qualifications and their proposals go, right? If you just strictly go by that.
Need a coin?
You wanna do it that way?
Agreed upon to go with their recommendation, so it's a recommendation.
My recommendation is HCI.
Do it then, you need a motion? Just,
We need, yeah, something from the.
yeah, let's go ahead and a motion to, go with the recommendation of HCI Construction for, what is that,
Neil Walker.
Neil Walker, renovation in Neil Walker building?
Is that a motion?
Yeah. Was that your recommendation, Ron?
I'll
I
second.
didn't hear that.
That's my recommendation.
Yeah,
Okay.
I put that in that motion.
HCI.
Been a motion, is there a second?
I second.
Motion second. Go with Ron's recommendation. Further discussion? Any objections?
Discussion. So, I wanna make sure that there's no overages and they're done on time. What guarantees do we get?
The LDs or the liquidated damages probably are.
Okay, that's good. With that being said, that's agreeable. But we got houses up here we've been waiting on to get completed for quite a bit of time here, and where are we with all that? It's causing a lot of friction, and it's like dropping a pebble in a pond and just ripples out. And so can you see how that would affect operations here if we just kinda indefinitely just go on because it's one of our tribal entities?
I think on, some of the housing stuff, we've had a lot of inclement and wet weather for the last, pretty much through the whole summer. And it's been really difficult to try and get basements dug, and I don't know, I don't follow, where they're at on.
I just wanna make sure that we're done before time and under budget. That's what I wanna hear.
The liquidated damages is the only insurance we have around. And we could bump those up to $500 a day, $350 is, kind of a standard. We could bump them up a little bit. So much per calendar day.
Okay.
So if let's just say we bump them up to $500 a day. And, that's $3,500 a week. That gets their attention. That's a lot of money.
Are you shooting for June 2019 yet?
That's where we're at. That's where we're at preliminary. There'll be a new schedule established, with the same type of criteria, probably over in the next couple months as the plans and specifications get finished. Because what we put together was, just based on, what myself and the architect thought it should take as far as timeline go, with some, there's, wet weather issues and, there's some other things, but I guess what we're shooting for is to try and get the building demoed yet this fall and try and get it enclosed. That's what's gonna be really important. We have to get it enclosed before mid-December, before it gets cold out. Those middle building companies, their workers are, accustomed to, being out in cold weather. But a lot of times when you get into January and February and, it's late December, a lot of times, it gets really cold and, sometimes, you just can't do it. But they're used to working in at 10-degree weather.
Go ahead.
Okay, any further discussion? Any objections to the motion? No objections, motion passed 7-0-0. Okay, thank you, Ron. Nothing on old business, tribal council items. Arlen, request to speak to council.
Thanks, man.
Is he here?
Is this a personnel issue?
I believe it may be concerning Winnebago, just from what I've seen.
Council, this gentleman came in, about a week and a half ago, and he wanted to speak to the council, but it was during, I think it was during a time when there might have been some wakes going on and such, so I'm not, advocating for one way or the other. I just wanted him to be able to speak to the council since, many of us were out of the office.
Okay, does this pertain to personnel action at the casino?
Yes.
Check.
Make a motion go into executive session.
Second.
The motion second, any objections? No objections, we're in executive session at 10:43.